Good morning and welcome to the first meeting of the month of April of the Greenwich Board of Selectmen. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I just want to welcome everyone to a public meeting of the Board of Selectmen. It is not a public hearing. There are copies of the materials on the table as you come in, the items that we will be discussing today. Before we delve deeply into the protocol of the meeting, I'd want to take a moment to acknowledge two people that have served the Greenwich community in a truly monumental way. They gave tirelessly of themselves to benefit the greater Greenwich community. This morning, I want us to pay tribute to two women who were towers of community empowerment and civic pride, who were guided by their lifelong passions to not only improve the town they called home, but also the quality of life for their fellow residents. Last week, the town of Greenwich lost Joan Melber Warburg, the community activist whose dedication as an advocate for child and family welfare, women's rights, world peace, and the arts. For more than half a century, Mrs. Warburg was an advocate who worked with and provided philanthropic support to family centers, and in fact, the child care center there bears her name. She was a familiar and welcoming face involved with countless community efforts that not only grew public awareness for the need to help our fellow man with her work with Planned Parenthood, the United Way, and the YWCA. She also broadened our appreciation for our place in history, having co-chaired the Greenwich 350th celebration nearly 3 decades ago, and she was an active patron of the arts. This weekend, the town of Greenwich lost one of its longest-serving members of the Greenwich Representative Town Meeting, Moderator Pro Tem Joan Caldwell. Joan had a simple approach to local government, that whatever the decision, it must provide a benefit to residents. For 52 years, Joan willingly gave of her time to the RTM, serving on a myriad of committees and as the moderator pro tem for the past 25 years. In one of her last efforts of service, Joan served as chair of the Selectmen's Board of Education Charter Revision Committee. Her work with that committee epitomized her approach to all she did. Use an even hand, treat people with respect, research, listen, and above all, take the high road. Joan's legacy, her dedication to the town she called home, her entire life is unmatched. We will miss her guidance and her wisdom. Personally, I knew Joan Caldwell, and I've known her since 1985 personally, but I knew of her since I was about 8 or 9 years old. And my relationship with her certainly evolved over time, from referring to her as Miss Caldwell, to later Joan, to later as Aunt Joan. And when I really wanted to get under her skin, I'd call her up and I'd say, "Is this Joan Eleanor?" And she would always say, "Watch it, wise guy." But Joan truly was a remarkable presence in that she took on issues and worked tirelessly. And the one that I just was reviewing and is in her own words is, which is recognized through the Greenwich Library's Oral History Project. And she did an interview back in 2014, November. And it was interesting to think about. She was very involved in Northwest Greenwich, and having read her crusade to keep out commercial development, particularly the Xerox Corporation, from developing in that area back in the late 70s, she talks about how, in her mind, if that had taken place, it would have opened up the floodgates to other type developments, thereby eroding zoning. And if that had taken place, Greenwich would be a far different community today than it is. And so, as having read that and thought about it, truly in that area, she left an indelible mark in shaping what we call Greenwich, Connecticut today. I would encourage those who are interested, if they'd like, we will send you the PDF, but it was a very poignant interview and classic Joan with some of her quips about different issues, different experiences in her life. So at this time, I'd like us to observe a moment of silence for both Joan Warburg and Joan Caldwell, and to express this board's condolences to both their families and celebrate their contributions to our town and its people. So please rise and join us in a pledge of allegiance. In a moment of silence, sorry. Thank you. For those who may not have known, the services for Joan Caldwell, are being held this Saturday at St. Mary's Church on Greenwich Avenue at 10 a.m. Calling hours to pay respects to her family are taking place this evening and tomorrow evening from 4 to 8 p.m. at Knapp's. Mrs. Warburg's memorial actually took place yesterday, and again, two icons. Greenwich is less bright today with their passing, but better for their contributions. Item number 2 is to approve minutes. Now, there's 3 sets of minutes, so we have to correct, there's a typo in this. The minutes that we are looking at are for the last regular meeting, which was March 10th. I do not see those on here, so we will have to take up a motion to consider those for approval, if you'd like. That would be for the regular meeting that we held.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay. So that motion is to take up the March 10th draft minutes for consideration of approval. So on those, all in favor will, aye. No, so now it's on the minutes. We voted to take them up. Any changes to those? If not, is there a motion to approve those regular meeting minutes as they are presented?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Let's see, goes there. Okay, the next is they're reversed, so the dates are reversed. So the special Board of Selectmen public hearing minutes were actually the 15th, not the 16th. That was for the public hearing that was held, and those are in draft form. Is there any changes, correction to those? Barbara, I scanned them for spelling of people's names, particularly those familiar with. I think there was one that I recall, I think you captured it. Actually, and these were done by Miss Sider, so I can't even ask you, because you didn't take them. I think we got everybody's name proper. Is there any changes or corrections to the public hearing Board of Education Charter Revision minutes for the 15th?
No.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Toner,
Second.
without objection. Then that proceeds to the special Board of Selectmen meeting, which was held on the 16th. Are there any changes or corrections to those particular minutes?
Actually, can I'm sorry. I just read this, I apologize. Did we vote on this yet? I'm sorry.
The 10th, we
We
voted.
did, I'm sorry.
Is there a correction?
There is. It's small, but it's just so if people, I should have read this. If possible, under old business, Mr. Merzel will thank the 5-member board, and that's all great, but just, here.
Page 2?
Yes, please. The second, 19 different options, and then he suggested the selectmen consider delaying the vote, that a proposal could be presented to the RTM for the June meeting. I didn't actually say June, I just said delay the vote, but it's a, you know.
Do you want to say just present it to the
Yeah,
RTM at a later date, at a later date?
At a later date or something, if that's
Okay,
the-
so
yeah.
we approve them. So let's take
sorry.
up a motion to reconsider.
Possible later, yeah.
So I'll move it, so moved.
Second.
Okay, so now we're reconsidering those, and so page 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth paragraph,
Thanks.
delaying the votes of the proposal to be presented to the RTM at a later time, was
Right,
that?
Yeah, but from my point of view, like if a possible later time, if that's what's going to happen. I mean.
Okay, we'll
but
just
that's
say,
all.
is that
That's-
sufficient
that's
for
fine.
your?
Yeah.
To be presented to the RTM at a later date.
Yeah, but I don't want to, I don't want to imply in the minutes that I wanted it to go to the RTM. My feeling, as you know, about charter change, I think it should be here, knowing that it's probably going to go based on
Mhm.
here, so.
So would you want to change, suggest it to something else?
Yeah, possible. He says that the second considered, I think all I said was really just delaying the vote. I think that was it, you know?
Okay.
And then,
So you wish, your sentiments that you feel you expressed that day are that.
He
you just-
suggested that the selectmen
just
consider delaying its
delaying the
vote.
yeah.
Period?
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that.
So strike so that a
If you can,
proposal could
yeah.
be presented, okay,
That's it,
Okay.
that's all.
okay, got it. So is there a
Thank you.
motion to approve, or reapprove the minutes as amended
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
without objection? So that goes back to the 10th. We were on the 16th, special meeting minutes. Is there any changes to those?
Yeah.
She did a good job.
Yeah, she did.
Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Toner. Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Did a very good job.
Okay, so Barbara, that completes our minutes. We did not hold a meeting because of the private school vacation, correct? We were
Correct, the
scheduled to have a
March
meeting.
23rd meeting was canceled.
Was canceled, so now we're back in sync on our regular, every 2 weeks. Although we have,
This week is changed because of the school holidays as well. So the next meeting, we have the meeting today, the next meeting will be on the 23rd
March. Yeah.
of
April.
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 got
It'll
it.
go back to this second and fourth Thursday
Got it, okay.
rotation.
Okay.
Super, thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
23rd? Is that right?
13th,
Easter is
13th, 20th.
20.
Easter and Passover next
27th.
week.
Barbara, is that right? 27th. Yes. Today's 6, 7, 13.
21 and 6 is 27.
Sometime in April.
Come on, we haven't passed elementary education.
Yes.
I was just telling my kids the other night that everything you learned in kindergarten, right? With different things. Well, okay, so that's the 27th. Okay. Item number 3, updates. Where do we begin? There's so many things to update on. It's amazing what goes on.
See what goes
Let's see. Well, let's start with the pleasant stuff, the real pleasant stuff. So, we were each invited, and most of this is retro, and then there's some perspective. So, in retrospective, but it's important, I think, to highlight for the minutes. We were invited to, the Board of Selectmen was invited to a special reception to welcome the new superintendent of schools, Dr. Jill Gildea, pronouncing that right? Gildea? We,
It's not Italian.
it's not Italian, it's Irish, okay. Well, we're well represented up here. Got the Irish, 100%, 100% Italian, then we got a little Italian, a little Irish, and a little Swedish.
There, see?
We're well represented.
You know emotions.
So we were very delighted to be included in it. It was a very nice opportunity to meet Dr. Gildea, who's coming to us from outside of Chicago, suburbs of Chicago. We want to extend appreciation to particularly Laura Erickson, who hosted the reception at her home, for the Board of Education, the Board of Selectmen, and some of our state elected officials. And we wish Dr. Gilday well as she starts on her tenure here, beginning officially on July 1. But will be with us, I understand, over the next several months, getting established. We received confirmation, actually, I see Valerie Mays Keeney, our Assistant Town Attorney, in attendance, that the charter change for Human Services has been not only approved by the representative town meeting, but that it is now in effect, and that all the pertinent sections of the charter of the town in the municipal code have been amended accordingly. So now the new name is Department of Human Services, and Commissioner Barry is working to transition all of the material to reflect that. Thank you, Valerie, for your work on that. I received a letter, it was we periodically do, or a copy of a letter from a resident who actually expressed tremendous gratitude to the level of quality of care that her husband received at the short-term rehab center at Nathaniel Witherell Skilled Nursing Facility. And I'll just excerpt some of it. She writes, "From the moment we entered his room, we felt at ease and could not believe how attentive all the nurses and nursing assistants were. The care provided was simply amazing, and there are not enough words to express our gratitude to everyone who took care of him. The PT and OT he received as an inpatient and now as an outpatient has set him on a quick path to recovery. They have been loving and kind while pushing him to his limits and encouraging him all the way. He would never have been this far in 3 weeks had he not been at your facility and had the opportunity to work with such knowledgeable staff and his physical therapist. Please convey to the chef how very much he enjoyed every one of his meals and how delightful all the food service personnel were." So just to share that, because we get so much discussion about Witherell, and this is a testament from someone who actually went through there.
And I can second that.
And you went there as well. Finally, in terms of looking at some of the more updated things that had taken place, we were here last Thursday to participate in the receipt of a trophy for the town of Greenwich and its citizens for their active participation in the last election. I believe the turnout was 82.5%, but the Secretary of State for Connecticut awarded the Registrar of Voters in the town the Democracy Cup. And congratulations to all the people who make those elections go off so well, and the citizens for showing up. This, another, I think, positive attribute, important to recognize. Chief Szynski shared this with me, and it's a letter of commendation from Chief Conway of the Portchester Police Department referencing off-duty actions of Greenwich firefighter Matt Gordiski. Matt, I'm just going to read you it from Chief Conway to Chief Szynski. The purpose of this letter is to bring your attention to the heroic actions of firefighter Matthew Gordiski. On March 24, 2017, at approximately 3:37 p.m., firefighter Gordiski was off duty and in his personal vehicle near the intersection of Willett Avenue and North Main Street. There he observed a crowd gathering around a gray Mazda. Firefighter Gordiski noticed someone in the crowd was attending to an unconscious child. Ignoring his own safety, he exited his vehicle and sprinted across traffic to the scene. There he encountered a chaotic situation. A 4-year-old male playing with the vehicle's sunroof had gotten his neck caught in the roof, causing him to lose consciousness and go into respiratory and cardiac arrest. Recognizing the magnitude of the situation, firefighter Gordiski immediately took control and began performing chest compressions on the child. He continued to do so until he was relieved by Portchester Rye EMS personnel. Physicians and EMS personnel have attributed the youngster's survival to firefighter Godisky's actions at the scene. I believe I speak for the entire Portchester Police Department in commending firefighter Godisky for his courage, professionalism, and willingness to help others. So I would like us to just formally acknowledge in a letter to firefighter Godisky our gratitude in his tremendous heroic actions. It really speaks well for his training and his quick thought to help.
Great story. That was good. That was awesome.
On Tuesday of this week, we hosted here in Greenwich a program for the Center for Sexual Assault Crisis Counseling and Education. The purpose of the program was to kick off Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We were pleased to host the communities of Darien, Weston, Stamford, Norwalk. We had participation by the chief elected officials from several of those towns, as well as the several state representatives from their area and ours. In addition, we heard from Meredith Gold, who's the executive director of the YWCA Greenwich's Domestic Violence Center, for which they partner closely with the center in Stamford. The underlying issue and the statistics related to it are frankly discouraging in some respects, because there's an increasing amount of incidents of violence in society, particularly sexual assault violence. So in raising awareness about it, we've been happy to host the center's recent photo exhibit. And if you're interested in seeing these, they're actually down in the first floor hallway. It's if you were headed to the tax collector's office. So if you come into the building, you make a left, and you will see displayed about 9 images of photographs of people with messages on their bodies. And these were actual victims of sexual assault, some as young as 6, and both sexes, men and women. It's, as they say, provocative, but it's powerful. And I would encourage anyone who is in the building to come and take a look at them. But the work that the center does in Greenwich is significant, in not just isolated number of incidents. And I had met with them after the meeting to talk about the role that they play here, working with the Greenwich Police Department and working with the YWCA. So in our way of helping, we're trying to provide awareness that the issue exists and that there is support in counseling for victims.
Can I just say that I think supporting you and your effort in terms of allocating the funding for the YW, in terms of there to help that, I know there's going to be discussion on what could be allocated for what, but I think that was very kudos to you and the Y for that. on
Great,
that.
thank you, Drew.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah, that is before the RTM, and we will see the results. Another organization, and in many ways, this event we just spoke about and the next one illustrate the type of activity that takes place in the First Selectman's office. You're regularly receiving visitors to educate, seek support, partner. And so the next one that I had an opportunity to meet, and very energetic individual, was Fran Pastor, who's president and CEO of the Women's Business Development Council here in Southwest Connecticut. And she is looking to gain greater exposure for the work that the Women's Business Development Council does. And I've talked with her about perhaps finding space where they can put on training programs and educate people as to what services they provide. They're ideally helping women entrepreneurs get themselves established as small businesses here in southwestern Connecticut region. Fran is wonderfully energetic. She is someone who actually came to this endeavor through herself trying to start a small business, and it was quite a poignant story how she came to create this organization, which I believe has been in effect, I want to say 20 years. It was formed in 1997, and it's a nonprofit organization that embraces the knowledge that women empowering other women is the path to success. And so we want to do what we can to help this particular organization. And Ken, I'm going to ask you, if you haven't, I think you've done a story, but there's some tremendous statistics that were provided by the organization in this particular handout, which I think would be beneficial for a larger audience to read. And then we want to acknowledge the efforts of the Historical Society of the Town of Greenwich. They have been very forthcoming in expressing concerns about the proposed changes to rail travel in the Northeast Corridor. The NEC Future Initiative, which is coming out of Washington, has the potential to gravely impact shoreline communities. In their case, some very valuable historic locations. They were actually featured in Connecticut for Historic Preservation's newsletter on the front page, but I just want to bring attention to that for those who may not be aware that this is in the preliminary phases, but like most issues, you want to get in on the ground floor and find out what's going on and be able to help lobby in any way you can. So that's somewhat of a retrospective. A couple things, and then I'll be quiet. Water. We have been hearing a lot about water over the last 6 to 7 months, and the good news is that the rain is forthcoming, and that the Greenwich reservoirs are now, I would be safe to say we're going to hit 100% after last evening and today. So, wonderful. That's the good news. As many people may not know, even though the quote-unquote Greenwich reservoirs are up to 100%, we're part of a larger system owned by Aquarian Water Company. The Stamford reservoirs, which are much larger and deeper, are about 10% below us, but they're also larger, so it takes longer to fill up. But working with locally, our conservation director, working with Aquarian, there are going to be changes over the next several weeks, likely targeting May 1st with regard to the restrictions. This is a restriction that is not just local. It is being driven by the State of Connecticut Department of Public Health Water Bureau. And of course, they have an emergency order that they file, which stipulates the conditions on which communities affected should go about conserving. They will likely be further modifying and amending that. But while the reservoirs are full, the underground water supplies are still recharging. I believe we were at a 14-inch deficit coming into the year. I believe for the month of March, we exceeded estimated rainfall averages, but prior to that, every month we were below. So what's next? What I envision happening is that there is a concerted effort to educate consumers on the proper outdoor irrigation practices. There's been communication shared and disseminated that homeowners only need to water 2 days a week, not every day. And that will likely become part of the focus over the next several weeks and into the summer. Because as we learned last year, the consumption that this town reflects goes from now about 8 million gallons of water usage a day to 32 million gallons of water usage when we get into the summer months. So it grows exponentially, and the bottom line is you don't need to water your lawn every day or sometimes twice a day. You only need to water it a couple times a week. So I think that's the message. I've heard some from folks who say, well, this is hurting the irrigation companies. I don't think anybody's out to hurt any business enterprise. In fact, this may create more business for them as they have to go out and regulate and change the system timers. And that in itself, I think, is sort of going to become a cottage industry. So thanks to all the folks working on this. Denise Savageau is our point person, and, thankfully it's been raining, so I'm happy. Finally, one issue that's garnered a lot of attention, and I think it's important to share information repetitively about it, because it just,
I guess, Steamboat Road.
yeah, it just needs to be clarified. Of course, the issue really is contained within the Town of Greenwich budget for 2017-18, and it is the Steamboat Road, call it a pier,
fish
call
or
it
not
a
to fish?
landing, call it a dock. We have been working with several entities within the town hall to research the history of this particular piece of infrastructure. As many people may not know, the town received on June 7th, a letter dated June 7th, from Indian Harbor Yacht Club expressing concern to us about the condition of the pier, that the pier is not regularly monitored by public safety officials, and members of the public access it at all different hours. They note that while there have been several safety notices in the recently installed safety barrier at the deteriorated southeast corner of the pier, it has not deterred the curious or to discourage the daring who climb over, around, and through. They enclose several photographs. In writing, we have only the objective of encouraging prompt remedy of the unsafe waterfront condition. We are mindful that there are diverse opinions about the use of the disposition of the unsafe pier, and we offer to join in discussions of that issue and stand ready to assist in any way. Well, we did have discussions, and they were
Fishy.
they were fruitful in some respects, but clearly the town did respond prior to even this letter in moving forward with an engineering study that has produced the request this year for the funds to repair the pier. But what's really driven some of the comments has been the activities at the pier. And I think this is the point that I'm trying to share that I learned, and that it's important for everybody to know, is that, yes, it's referred to as a pier, but if you go back into historical documents, initial references refer to it as South Greenwich Avenue. In South Greenwich Avenue dock. So over time, the steamboat emerged as a title to that area. We know in a 1944 letter from then Commissioner of Public Works, Joseph Cohn, he was dealing with some of the very concerns we're dealing with today about the activity in and around that area. And coincidentally, it was also a time when people were seeking funds. The town was seeking funds to fix it. So it went from being South Greenwich Avenue to then being referred to as Steamboat Road Dock, or the town dock at the end of Steamboat Road. The concern about the activities, notably fishing, were well expressed by the public, some of the public who came. And so it resulted in researching who has jurisdiction. Right now, there are provisions of the municipal ordinance that talk about limitations on swimming and fishing. And the particular sections is speaking to areas that are controlled under the aegis of the Department of Parks and Recreation. This particular structure is under the care and custody of the Department of Public Works. In talking with our esteemed legal department, we do not believe the existing ordinance language is applicable. So if in fact there is a desire to, one, fix the pier, which I think the vast majority of people seem to see it as a valuable asset that allows people to get a great outlook on the sound, but have concerns about the activity, if in fact the town wished to change that, it would have to do so through the drafting of a new ordinance. And that ordinance would be like any ordinance, it would come back, start here, and it ultimately is in the hands of the RTM.
So, Mr. Chairman, so it's like, just, so you would have, right now, the allocation is to fix it, and then afterwards, in terms of what they'll do with it, it's not, are they receiving?
Well, right now, I mean,
package? Like, I mean,
well, no, they're not. So that's one of the reasons that you could foresee someone in the RTM saying, well, let's not go forward until you address the issue of the fishing. But not everyone sees that as a problem. But if we, in our judgment.
Are they on a separate tract, or?
Yes, they're definitely on a separate
Okay,
track.
so the okay.
Because,
So one has nothing to, okay.
right, because theoretically, if it's such a hazard, the town can shut it down right now. If we want, I mean, truly shut it down and not have anybody on it until it's restored.
So the goal is to we're gonna fix it first,
Well-
it's gonna, and then,
Right, as we're fixing it, we can address the issue of use. Now,
could we start talking about that? Or
Well, that's
wait
one of-
till after, I mean, sorry.
yeah, no, you're on the right track. That's one of the
Sorry.
reasons why I'm sharing this with you, is to get it out in the public.
I'll shut up, how's that?
No, to get it out in the public domain. Our legal team is here. Just, is that fairly accurate, what I've described, Wayne? Just in. Okay, so to put that out there, if in fact there's a concern about it and we hear further, this board can initiate an ordinance, but ultimately the RTM will have to decide it. And the RTM is the final word.
Do you think, can I just ask, sorry, do you think you'll have people on the, is the concern, do you think you'll have people on the RTM in either opinion saying they don't want to vote until they hear from us about an ordinance, or no? Like,
You may perhaps, and that's why I'm bringing it up now, that we are, it's not like we're just saying, we got the money this far, we're going to wait.
Okay.
No, we've taken seriously the concerns. I actually have to share with Joe Sisson, I went down last Saturday and was taking pictures of the lower, like looking down at it, because there are holes in like the center of it with like, it looks like where you could put things. I don't know if that was for signage, but there are a lot of questions that I have now about the whole area, not just the pier itself. There's the parking area, there's the signage, there's the trash receptacles. Some of them don't belong to the town. So there's a whole bevy of issues that I think will come up, or have come up, that we'll have to look at. But there's signage already limiting hours of occupancy. It's a matter of enforcement. Police say they have had no incidents, like major incidents there in the last several years. But,
so, okay, so it's, okay.
So we-
We'll be talking about it until, okay.
yeah, so perhaps maybe at our next meeting, we'll delve further into it, but I just wanted under updates to get it out there.
Can we also look at the liability of the town? Of somebody falling off the pier and also somebody being hooked by one of the fishing lines?
Yes, I think the BET dispatched the town's risk manager out there, and a report is being provided to them, naturally back to us. So we'll await getting that, because that will address that.
Okay.
Thank you.
That concludes really updates. Thank you for your indulgence going, how many weeks was it since the last meeting? 4?
That's been a month.
A month. There's a lot that accumulates.
You do a lot.
And we thank the approval of the budget. I mean, the things that were initiatives so far have retained, but there's no guarantee until May 9th, after the RTM votes. Okay, the next item under old business is really just a continuation of our discussion on the proposed charter revision changes, as was noted in our minutes. So we had a special meeting. The decision at the special meeting was to not move forward with the language that would, if passed on to the RTM were to approve it, would take effect within the current calendar year and affect the 2017 municipal election. So due to our taking pause, we're now under a more leisurely timetable in terms of at least not 2017. I personally expressed, and will continue to do so, I think the issue should be addressed by the town meeting this year, since the effort has been put in this year. But what we have before us is really an adjustment to the language, Wayne, and perhaps you could just speak to it. Really, the only distinction between what we initially received and what we're looking at today is that the dates pertaining to its effectiveness have been changed from 2017 to 2019.
That is correct.
That's the only thing.
It's the only change.
One of the things, and I know you're working on this, is it would be helpful for us, as we're contemplating this, to see a graph, and I know you may even have it, but you're working on something that will depict how, if approved, this would impact the board and the rotation of people.
Yes. I've been working on this with Gene McLaughlin, who's on trial today, but also with Valerie Mays-Keeney, who is with me today. Valerie's a lot smarter than I am, so Valerie was able to put together for your consideration a chart
Hear that,
which
Valerie?
will show you how it would work procedurally. It's actually very simple. As we explained the last time we were here, there are 4 people up for election in 2017, another 4 up for election in 2019. In 2019, it would provide for 3 people running for a term of 4 years, and 1 person or 2 people, 2 candidates running for a term of 2 years, so that when you
Okay.
got down the road, you would have the 5 and 3 as was suggested by your committee.
Okay, so there's where the question comes in. How do you determine who gets the 4 and who gets the 2? Like, what process will there be to?
Straws.
If they don't use straws,
Yes.
then the respective town committees would nominate people. Johnny Jones is running for a 2-year term. 3 other people are running for a 4-year term. It will be up to them to fill the slots that are up for election in that time frame, if in fact this charter change is adopted.
So just to be clear, it's really the town committees who will decide.
Who would decide who would be, as they do now.
Right.
Town committees decide who the 4 would be. The town committees would decide who the 4 would be. Of those 4, 3 would be running for a 4-year term, and 1 would be running for a 2-year term.
That's the difference. They don't decide on the actual number of years. That'll be the
Yeah.
discussion, right? Yeah.
Right, so when they do the endorsement, because really they're granting it an endorsement.
That would be correct.
And you might, in theory, get people who
Right, independents.
prefer that would want 2 years opposed to frame it
That all
very
could be.
well. Don't want to commit to
That's
4
all a
years.
possibility.
I mean,
But there are independents in this also, or non-affiliates.
There could be.
There could be.
They could petition,
Right.
as they can now. That doesn't change.
so it's before it's before our board tonight, today, to because it's an ongoing discussion. We're just changing the
Well, right,
date.
we're not,
Okay, we're
and
not-
also another thing that Wayne has shared with me is, so if we were to approve, let's just say we were to approve something today, it triggers a notice to the RTM that they have to act within so many days, right? On the next,
The way it is set up now, and the one reason why I would recommend to you that you not vote on it today,
we're not intending to, just to be clear. but-
under our existing charter, if in fact you decide this is what you want to do, then our charter provides you to deliver it to the town clerk, and it directs the town clerk to put it on the call for the next RTM meeting, which would mean, since the RTM call has already been put out for the April meeting, theoretically, it would be put on for the May meeting, which is the budget meeting. I know from experience, the RTM does not like to have anything on that call other than the budget. In addition to that, there's a separate section, 9-205, 206A, which provides that if one is elected under the charter change, they would be up for election in the next local election. I don't think that would happen, but we don't want there to be any debate or discussion or any possibility that this would end up having to be on an agenda in 2017. So for those 2 reasons, I would suggest you not vote on it today.
Right, so the cutoff for the June is, I believe, May 19th, May 17th?
It's either the 14th or the 17th.
Yeah, so I mean, so our next meeting is the 27th, as we confirm.
to get it in June. So if the RTM takes it up, but say, for sake of argument, they don't act, say they get it in June, if it's advanced, if they don't act, they break for July and
To September.
September. That's right, but there's no.
We're not talking
it's-
17 anyway, we're talking 2019, so that would not be a problem.
Yeah. Is there any way that the public meeting, that was really good, there was like 100 of them, that, could we get that to the RTM in minutes or something? That was a pretty cool
Oh, you mean
public meeting.
the minutes? Well, they're all
Yeah.
online.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I mean,
So
that's
I
the
know.
thing, people, all the minutes and the agendas are on, the report's been online since they delivered it to us, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I believe perhaps not environmentally giving the hard copy too, because people will find any excuse of why they didn't read it. Well, if you didn't read it, you didn't take the initiative. It's been there. But if you want to run off 250 copies, we can do it. Hopefully they.
No, I mean, I didn't, yeah. if it's
I'm happy to
online.
do that,
No,
but
no,
because I myself like a hard
Yeah.
copy with.
So if we don't, okay, just I'm trying to think the time-wise, if we don't, so if this board doesn't get it to the if we don't take it up for, okay. So they're either going to, if assuming the vote's 2-1, let's assume, if it goes to the RTM, it could be June. If not, they don't meet again until September, right? June and
That
September.
would be correct.
They could
Right.
do any number of things. They could take it up and vote it down.
They
But in
could.
They
June?
could amend it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, once it's
Whenever.
in their hands, it's theirs to do what they wish.
Okay.
They could move to postpone it indefinitely. They could
All of the above.
move to refer to a committee. I mean, there's a number of variables that only they will know, and whatever group is constituted there, meaning how many were assembled. The other thing that it's
And they have
important.
time, right? Because when would their cutoff to get it in next year's election? They have
Would it
months
be
to do
next
it.
year? It would be 2 years.
2 years, so they have time
Election wouldn't be
to,
until 2019.
yes, okay, so there's
They
time
have
for them to take it up.
June, September, October, December. That's it. They have 4 meetings left.
Yes.
The question that I had, well, a couple things. One, it requires 116 votes to be approved. So you have to think about that
Is there
number.
a charter change?
Yes.
Okay.
But the other thing is, if the calendar were to come to December and it's still in committee, let's just say they have it in a committee, they're going back and forth. When the RTM adjourns in December, do the actions of that RTM cease, or does it carry over to the new RTM that's elected
Good question.
in November of 17? And
I will double-check this for you, but I believe it will be carried over to the new RTM.
the only thing that I can recall, and that's why I was asking, but was the tree ordinance. Took like 2 years to get. Were you involved with the tree ordinance? Oh, okay.
Don't.
Anyway,
Bob's agreeing with you, actually.
Bob's here, yeah.
Yeah, he's agreeing.
You were on the RTM then, right?
Just coming back.
Okay. That was a long one, so, okay. So those were the questions I had, but the chart would be very helpful. And let's just to be clear, so if our meeting is the 27th, we want to accelerate when departments send us stuff, so we can get it earlier than we typically do, because then naturally, then it's available for people to consume. So we have 3 weeks to prepare the background that will effectively depict what this paragraph means.
Do you see a need, I'm asking, because I don't know how you feel about this, do you see a need for us to have another public meeting?
I don't, because
Okay,
I think the people's
100 people
opinions,
came.
I've met with a
Okay.
couple of the people who spoke of,
And we had
it's a judgment. I mean,
Yeah.
people have to make their judgment on what they, I mean, ultimately, the RTM is going to decide.
Right,
And
and the people are already talking about going to the RTM meetings.
They're talking, yeah, they are talking about it in committees already. Yeah, all right. But it's not going to even get there because you guys are going to vote it down with me.
I'm not going to predispose, I don't want to predispose what will happen. So that's it, Wayne. Do you have any questions? Do you?
No.
Because I know we have we have another item that's under new business that we have to discuss.
I have significant business also in executive session, so I won't
Lot.
take your time now, but I have prepared a chart which I will submit to your office for
Significant
distribution.
business.
Yeah.
Right, thank
Did you
you.
see the cases?
Significant.
So that really concludes old business. New business,
Thank you,
we have before us a lease. As many people know, leases begin here at the Board of Selectmen, but since we've adopted our clarified policy, ultimately, many of them wind up in the hands of the RTM. So this particular one is a renewal. So it's not a new lease. It is a renewal for the Children's Day School. And this is the site at the Western Greenwich Civic Center. Amina Ahmad, who's the Assistant Town Attorney handling this, is with us, and perhaps can review with us the existing lease in the condition for renewal.
Yes. Good morning.
Hi,
It's
Ellen,
hard to
thank you.
believe this is up for renewal.
I know, I remember when we fought to make sure that childcare stayed there back in 2007.
I can't believe it's
Right.
been- Wow.
So yes, this lease goes back to 2007, approved by the RTM in May of 2007 for a child care center at the Western Greenwich Civic Center. Believe it or not, 10 years is up or will be up in August. And as required by the lease, the Children's Day School has given the town notice that they would like to renew for an additional 5-year term. And like you said, Mr. First Selectman, this is a renewal, and that renewal term was written into the original lease when the RTM approved it in May 2007. In fact, the approved lease has 2 5-year renewal terms, and it gives the Children's Day School the right and the option to ask the town for those 5-year renewal terms. So this would be the first of those 2 5-year terms that they have expressed an interest in going forward with. The letter from the Children's Day School is attached and is part of your package. So essentially, that there are no changes to the lease terms. With us here is Susan Snyder, the Recreation Superintendent. Her department has been overseeing the lease, so we checked with the Department of Parks and Recreation to see how things were going, if there were any modifications or changes that need to be made. The Children's Day School is not looking for any changes or modifications to the lease. And you will see in the original lease itself, it takes into account all the entire first 10 years of the lease, plus the 2 additional 5-year terms, by telling us what the rent will be, including the 2 5-year renewal terms. So it started out with a rental of $40,900 annually, which was the base rent, but built into the lease terms is a 7.5% increase. I am told that the current rent being paid by the Children's Day School is $50,811 per year. So again, that was factored into the lease when the RTM approved it back in 2007. As we do with these leases, we have our risk manager take a look at them from time to time, see if there's any updates in insurance that we need. Mr. Ron Lally did do that and has provided us with some updates that he would like to see in terms of coverage amounts. So we will go ahead and relay that to the Children's Day School. So other than that, there are no changes. The lease itself, the original lease, does have language in there which says that the town may, from time to time, ask for updated insurance coverage, and so it's a pretty straightforward renewal for an additional 5-year term.
How many children are in that program, do you know?
Very good question. I'm afraid I don't have the answer. I don't know. No.
Given the traffic that goes through there, it must be fully subscribed to.
I
Maybe it
believe
says
it
that,
is, because I know they've had a wait list from time to time, and so I think it's a very popular childcare center in Glenville.
How did, just out of curiosity, not that they're doing a great job, is there any more available space? Like, how did we choose on this? Was it? How did we end up with a date? Like, what was the origin of all this?
Because,
Like, how did this become space?
you were involved with the.
Well, I mean,
How it worked out.
there was a whole process to determine what activities would go into the Western Greenwich Civic Center when it was renovated. And childcare ranked really high at the
Okay.
top.
So it's not like somebody could rent it for office. It has to be specifically for.
Well, I mean,
Childcare.
ultimately, the town can decide, but it was initially transferred from the Board of Education to the town back in 1975 for the purposes of a community or civic center. And over that time, it was managed by the Department of Parks and Rec and was leased or rented for various activities, many of them centered around children and childcare, programs. Of course, childcare evolved from the 70s, 80s into more regulated and licensed programs. And when we got to the point where we were determining what would go in there as a group that was seeking to renovate it, the surveys that were undertaken by residents
That's
clearly
child.
identified the need.
Yeah.
And also,
Great.
we relied upon, I believe, the United Way needs assessment in their whole Child Care 2000
Great.
initiative that resulted in the facility on the east side.
Is that the only place that is that the only place we rent? Is that the only?
I believe we have Child Care in Coscob at the Bible Street.
But at the Western Civic Center, is that the only
You mean
part
what
that
else
we?
do we have
Yeah, do we
there?
have a lot that we rent out, or is it just that?
No, we have other
There-
things.
There's a-
Rent out.
there's a
Very
sports center
active,
there.
right, very active civic center. There's various groups that offer programs there.
But space, I'm
Different types
talking.
of recreational programs.
I'm just curious,
In terms of a
doesn't matter.
lease, I
You don't have
don't
to find
think
out.
there's a lease, but there are license agreements, I believe, for different
Because there's a
vendors.
weightlifting room there,
Because
isn't
I
there?
think it's
that people
incredible space.
subscribe to.
It's a great.
There's a
thing.
weightlifting room.
Come up to the mic.
Pretty much live in that area who pay a fee for that.
You have to say it again. You have.
Come up to the mic, please.
It's a fee. Who's she? The.
Hi, sorry about that. The weightlifting room that you asked about, generally people in that area of town use, and they do pay a fee to use that, and that fee is a monthly fee that then goes to the Western Civic Center revenue.
I think it's great.
But this is the only lease that we have at the Western Civic Center or Eastern Civic Center. This is the only lease we have.
The only reason why I ask, and I'm not, believe me, I'm not in favor of this, so don't miss it. The only reason why I asked the question was because I'm sure you'll get some people at the RTM reviewing leases, if whether or not, if it wasn't childcare, maybe if it was could it be more revenue, can we get more money for it, basically what I'm trying to ask here. So that's why I just asked but there was a needs assessment, I think it's great, that we're doing it this way. Just curious how it originated.
Well, there was that, and I think, money was given by the Bentheim Foundation or the Leo Lowenstein Foundation, which Mr. Bentheim's name was part of the family, with the understanding it's going to be used for certain purpose.
Right, perfect.
I was going to say here,
Sounds good to me.
to see if, I'm trying to find the answer to the question about how many.
Daycare. Seems like a lot of kids every time you see there.
It's very busy.
It seems very busy. They seem like very good neighbors, the kids. They're very happy there. They are.
It's a well-run program.
Yeah, it really is.
We're very happy to have them
Yeah,
at
you
the
drive
Civic
by, you see the
Center.
kids are very happy
It
there.
just says in terms of CDS has been able to support families for many years by providing affordable, exceptional child care in our community. We are proud to provide need-based tuition assistance through Heimbold Tuition Assistance Fund created in 2000. Over the past 12 years, we have awarded more than $1.2 million in assistance covering between 15 and 75% of annual tuition to our families who could not otherwise afford to attend. The Board of Children's Day School and our 180 children and their families thank those who have contributed for your generosity as together we continue the Heimbold legacy. So the 180, I'm reading that and thinking it may pertain only to those who are receiving the assistance, not the entire population, but it's safe to say they probably have a couple hundred kids.
Is there and I don't expect you to, answer, is there a difference between day school and preschool, or no? Is this a,
This is a daycare facility,
Okay.
so can be an all-day program if families need it for all day. A preschool is basically just a program for 3 and 4-year-olds. It's like a half-day morning school program. This is daycare for, let's say, parents who work and
yeah,
It's from 6 weeks
Yeah.
to 5 years old. 6 weeks.
so 5. And once again, I only asked too, because talk about preschool and more, but okay, right.
different licensing.
Different license,
as well.
okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
The town does operate a preschool program out of the Coscob Community Center.
Yeah.
We operate that. We have a state license, and that is for preschool. It's not daycare.
What's okay. I'll find, okay, all right.
Their website has quite a bit if
Look
you
that
want to
stuff
read
up.
it.
No, why am I asking you?
I'm just looking at the municipal improvement approval that was granted back in 2007, and it says here that Children's Day School, 60 children ages 6 weeks to 6 years old, with 18 staff members. So that's what the municipal improvement approval states in the Planning and Zoning
Yeah,
Commission.
because their facility over on Riverside,
Yes, this is
it's
the
larger than
one
this.
of two facilities,
yeah,
correct.
because that one is the whole, they have a much larger footprint.
Right,
Whereas
and
they only have really only half the floor space at
It's
Western.
not a very large space. If you ever go in there, it's sort of very confined to one section of the building, and then they have a small playground in the back.
Thank you.
So today, just to review, so this particular is a renewal. In terms of the steps for renewal, do you just need this board to confirm the provisions for renewal today? Or do you request we do so at the next meeting? Because, I mean, in all candor, I totally support
I'm
this
voting for this.
continuing. It's form over function, so to speak.
If you're comfortable with it, I think just to get this going, if we have your approval, then we can go back to the Children's Day School and have them get us the updated insurance.
Sure. So I would make a motion to approve the lease renewal for the Children's Day School as presented today.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Toner. Discussion, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again, Amina, for
Thanks,
your
Amina.
thoroughness and attending to this. Okay, the next item on the agenda is appointments and nominations. We have a few remaining. So we received at the last meeting a letter of resignation from George Yankowicz, who had served the Housing Authority of the Town of Greenwich Board of Commissioners for some 12-plus years. George's term actually expired in July of 14. He continued, and we enabled him to continue to complete some of the work he was doing on the redevelopment of units at Adams Garden and some planning at Armstrong, but he has fulfilled that mission. So that now is a vacancy. And I know I had spoken with him. I don't know, Drew, did you speak with him?
With-
Mr. Defina?
I'm ready to
Okay,
support him.
and John, you
I did speak
spoke
with
with him. So Mr. Defina is a resident of Riverside. He was a longtime member of the Board of Health for the town of Greenwich. I believe he's retired now and has time to devote to a new endeavor.
Yep.
And this would be now for a term, if you take 14, that would expire in July of 2019.
Is it July or? Yeah, I guess it is.
Or you could,
Peter has down here 6/19.
well,
but
June
7/19,
30th.
yeah.
You could say June 30th.
Yep. Okay.
So is there a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
A motion has been made to appoint
How do you spell his last name?
Vincent Defina
Yeah, Vincent.
to fill the remaining term on the Greenwich Housing Authority Board of Commissioners for a term expiring June 30th of 2019. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So,
Just see how to spell his last name. Defina, D.
Defina. Did you meet with Mr. Kardumi, who's up for reappointment?
No, I don't know.
He's a good guy.
I know him too.
Do you want it? Do you want it?
Well, I want to be clear, is he continuing? It says that, but at one point he was,
Wasn't
I
my
spoke to him
question?
the other night.
and he said yes?
Yeah, he's,
Okay, then I'm fine with that.
How come I heard too that he was, okay.
I think that was a while back. So is there another appointment?
motion
Who are we
to
doing?
reappoint Jim Boutel for another term. He will,
Should be
It's a
6,
5-year.
5
so
years,
So
2022.
2022.
Hard to believe,
Oh my
wow.
God, yes.
2022.
Now, Peter has down here 322.
Yeah, it should be 6.
622, okay.
God, if we're still here then.
I doubt it.
I mean, 2022. Bob,
So it's
still
been-
gonna be here? 2022. Look, all of us. 2022.
So Mr. Toner has made a motion to appoint, or reappoint, let's
Jim
be clear,
Boutel.
James Boutel for a term on the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners expiring June 30th of 2022.
I will second that, Mr.
Seconded by
Chairman.
Mr. Mazzullo. All in favor?
Aye.
And then is Mr. Kurdumi, he's upping because we might as well, his term is up.
He's a good guy.
Okay.
Yeah, he
I-
is.
I
he
would
is,
say-
he is.
I'll go with it.
Okay, make
Yeah.
the motion.
Okay, yes, Mr. Cardumi for, is it the same, expiring 2022?
Yes.
Wow.
So Mr. Marzullo is moving
Abe.
to appoint, or reappoint, Mr. Abe Kurdumi to the Greenwich Housing Authority Board of Commissioners for a term expiring June 30, 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So that takes housing off.
That takes
That
housing off.
completes housing, finally.
Finally.
Because the other position is their tenant commissioner
was gonna say.
position, which we have nothing to do with. That's. Okay, so looking at some of the other areas, I believe, John, you had been taking the lead in discussing, I'm just looking at the typeface is like 8.
You need glasses.
Parks and Recreation,
Wait to 2022.
Parks and Recreation, I thought I saw.
Yeah, Parks and Rec, they're.
In wetlands, I did not get a comment back, but we could, from,
Okay. Parks and Rec, there's,
I think there's one spot.
one spot open. And we have 4 candidates.
We have an abundance of riches, right?
And they're all good candidates.
Abundance of riches.
I haven't spoken with Mr. McGarity, but I've known him for years.
So this open spot, you know, it says 317,
That's when it expires. right?
yeah. So it would be for 3 years, so we'd be up to 20. I know, let's see, 2 of the people out of the 4. I have yet to, so, I mean, we could plan to act at the meeting on the 27th, giving us the opportunity all to see the other 2.
Mhm.
Because I've seen,
I saw one, I know the other, so but who hasn't seen? John, have you not seen him? Or no? Yeah.
I've seen Dean, I've seen Gene, and of course, I know Matt, and I know Tom McGarity.
Yeah.
But I haven't talked to him.
Okay. I'm comfortable if, whatever you want. They're all good to me.
and then, so I would prefer to wait on that, because
Yeah,
I'd like to
okay.
meet with them,
Yeah.
the 2 that I have not. Wetlands, we met with Mr. Rossi.
Yeah.
I met with Mr. Rossi, he's very,
Yeah.
Yeah.
very impressive man. I think he would bring a lot to the table.
I'm comfortable. Yeah, I know him too, so. Have you met with him?
No, but I know, I've met with them years ago.
Okay.
Mr. Rossi would be filling the position that Mr. Salisbury has completed, an alternate.
Right.
So would you like to make a motion? Because that will complete our action on wetlands.
Okay, I'd like to nominate Alan Rossi. I'm sorry. Nominate Alan Rossi to the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency for a 4-year term, which will end in 2021.
Yes. Okay, a motion has been made to nominate Alan Rossi to an alternate position on the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There is.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been seconded by Mr. Marzullo. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any other nominations that would come before the board today?
No, I don't believe so.
Good.
Alarms Appeal Board, we have to straighten out at some point in time.
I believe we just had someone step down.
Yeah. And
And we're going to need someone for the Historic District Commission.
we have Shellfish Commission.
Shellfish. That's Rita Baker, or not Rita
I
Baker.
thought
Sue
we,
Baker.
There's an
Gotta
opening.
do that, Sue Baker rule. Be calling you. Susie B. Susie B. Come on, smile, people. Why is everyone? Thank you.
let's
Everyone's
see,
leaving.
21, I think we covered Shellfish.
No, we have an opening.
Oh, an opening, but,
If we didn't, we'd be hearing from
so we
Sue
have,
Baker.
do we have a candidate?
Not yet.
Well,
The word has been put out that we want somebody.
Yeah,
get one
so-
soon.
Okay. We've got wonderful shellfish in Greenwich, some of the best shellfish around.
Yep, gluten-free.
Don't be a wise guy.
Gluten-free shellfish.
Time is money. Okay, so that concludes appointments and nominations. We have item 7 on the agenda, which is executive session. We have quite a bit of matters, so there's pending litigation.
So shall we make a motion? to go
1,
into-
2,
To go out of regular?
3, 4,
Okay, I'd like to make a motion
5.
to go out of regular session.
6. There are 6 items I count in. So there's a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing in potential settlement of pending litigation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The time is 11:25.